Beneath the marble corridors of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a parchment slumbered through 5 centuries of silence. When rediscovered in 1929, the Piri Reis map stunned the modern world, its faded ink tracing the outlines of continents unknown in its time. Yet it was not the Americas that provoked gasps from scholars, but the southernmost lines, a coastline eerily resembling Antarctica, drawn centuries before it was even discovered. And without its cloak of ice, who was Piri Reis, and what ancient knowledge guided his hand? Beneath each brushstroke lay whispers of empires lost, oceans forgotten, and perhaps a memory of the earth before the Great Flood. Few remember the man behind the map. Piri Reis, an Ottoman admiral, navigator, and scholar, was more than a cartographer. He was a collector of ancient truth. His notes claimed that the map was not his own invention, but a compilation drawn from 20 older charts, some from the time of Alexander the Great. What ancient sources could have survived that long? The parchment was created in 1513, but the knowledge within seemed to echo from a world lost to time. In this quiet revelation, a deeper mystery stirred. How could a sailor of the 16th century possess details of coastlines buried beneath millennia of ice? Historians soon discovered that the Piri Reis map contained not one perspective but many fragments stitched together from forgotten ages. The admiral himself wrote that some of his sources were drawn in the days of the pharaohs. Each line, each coastline was a mosaic of memory. Could these charts have survived through secret channels, from Alexandria's burning libraries to Byzantine vaults, and finally to the Ottoman archives? The possibility that knowledge older than recorded history had passed silently from hand to hand suggested a continuity of civilization that defied accepted timelines. What truly unsettled modern researchers was not the artistry of the map, but what it revealed beneath the ice. Geologists compared the Piri Reis coastlines to seismic surveys of Antarctica's subglacial topography. The match was almost perfect. It depicted a terrain last visible more than 6,000 years ago, when the Earth's axis, climate, and oceans were vastly different. If this depiction was not a coincidence, it meant that the source material predated the last ice age. Such precision could only have come from direct observation by a civilization capable of global navigation before the dawn of recorded history. The deeper the scholars delved, the more impossible the map became. Legends of antediluvian kings, Atlantean seafarers, and celestial visitors resurfaced, not as fantasy, but as fragments of an ancient story told in ink. Could the Piri Reis map be a surviving echo of pre-flood civilization, one erased when oceans rose and memory drowned? For every skeptic demanding proof, the map itself offered only silence, a silence more haunting than any words. Somewhere between myth and geometry, truth shimmered faintly, like land glimpsed through mist. When researchers overlaid the Piri Reis map with satellite data, the results defied reason. The drawn coastlines aligned not just approximately, but precisely with modern measurements. Mountains, river deltas, even tiny inlets appeared exactly where they should. This was no mere coincidence of artistic flourish. It was cartographic mastery centuries ahead of its time. The ink's accuracy whispered of instruments unseen and techniques long forgotten. Yet the admiral himself claimed no invention, only translation from older sources. That left one chilling question. Who, long before telescopes and flight, had mapped the Earth from the sky? As the investigation deepened, a geometric pattern began to emerge. Angles, distances, and ratios that mirrored modern principles of spherical trigonometry. Yet these concepts were unknown in the early 16th century. The scholars realized that whoever created the original source maps understood Earth as a sphere, measured with astonishing precision. Even more baffling was the projection itself, an azimuthal equidistant layout, identical to those used in modern polar navigation. Such sophistication hinted at mathematics preserved from a civilization both ancient and advanced, one that may have measured the planet long before history began recording. Ancient myths spoke of gods descending from the heavens, teaching humanity the secrets of stars and navigation. But what if these were not myths, but memories of teachers from a civilization predating the flood? Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, satellite scans now reveal structures and geological formations eerily reminiscent of artificial design. The team begins to suspect that the Piri Reis map may have preserved knowledge from that hidden epoch, information passed down in fragments through Egyptians, Greeks, and Persians, until one Ottoman admiral unknowingly compiled the last echo of a world that once circled the globe. Nishi. Dr. Evelyn Mora's paleoclimate studies added an unsettling timeline to the enigma. Her ice core data confirmed that the Antarctic coastline had last been visible, ice-free, around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. This meant that whoever drew the source maps had either existed in that prehistoric age or possessed knowledge from those who had. The implications rippled through academia. This was not merely a curiosity, but a paradigm shift. If the Piri Reis map reflected an ice-free Earth, then its creators had witnessed the world before cataclysm, before the great flood that reshaped civilization itself. When the team presented their findings to the academic world, disbelief turned swiftly to resistance. The implications were too vast, too dangerous. To accept the map's authenticity meant rewriting the history of exploration, mathematics, and human civilization. How could modern institutions admit that the ancients had once known the world better than we do today? And yet, the evidence remained. The ink, the parchment, the geometry, all undeniable. In the silence of the archive, amid dust and light, a single truth persisted. The Piri Reis map was not a mistake of history. It was a message from an age the Earth itself had buried. Long before the ink of Piri Reis, knowledge flowed through the veins of a world now vanished. In the heart of ancient Egypt stood the Library of Alexandria, a beacon of human brilliance that guarded thousands of scrolls on astronomy, geography, and forgotten sciences. When it burned, history itself turned to ash. Yet whispers endured that fragments of its collection survived, carried east by scholars, preserved by the hands of mapmakers and sailors who could not forget what they once knew. If the admiral's sources drew from those very remnants, then his map was not a marvel of his time, but a relic of one far older. When the ancient world fell into ruin, its knowledge did not die. It went underground. Scholars of Byzantium, Arabic astronomers, and Persian navigators became secret custodians of the old sciences. They copied what little remained of pre-flood wisdom, weaving it into their own maps and charts. To the Ottomans, this legacy came through trade and conquest, a network of libraries, each preserving a single line of an older song. It was among these forgotten archives that Piri Reis found the traces that became his masterpiece, guided not by discovery, but by memory, passed through 1,000 unseen hands. Centuries before the Ottoman Empire, Greek philosophers spoke of Earth as a sphere and calculated its circumference with uncanny accuracy. Eratosthenes, Hipparchus, and later Ptolemy mapped the heavens with mathematics still admired today, but scattered writings hint that they drew from even older traditions, measurements learned from the Nile priests and travelers from lands that no longer exist. As Dr. Shaw delved deeper, she found symbols in the margins of Piri Reis's map identical to those used in Hellenistic geometry, bridging an impossible gap between empires separated by millennia. The pattern was clear. Knowledge had survived catastrophe. Deeper still, the team unearthed Babylonian tablets, etched thousands of years before the pyramids, that mapped the skies with precision, rivaling modern astronomy. Some tablets hinted at great floods, celestial alignments, and migrations that followed the submersion of southern lands. If these accounts were historical memory rather than myth, then the cartographers of old may have charted a world that perished beneath the sea. Babylon's clay voices, Alexandria's ashes, and Ottoman ink now converged into a single truth: that the Piri Reis map might be the last surviving echo of a civilization that mapped both earth and heaven. From Babylon to Byzantium, from Egypt to the Ottomans, a single chain of transmission emerged, a thread of knowledge spanning 10,000 years. The Piri Reis map, far from being an anomaly, was its final limit. Beneath the layers of conquest and translation lay a secret continuity, a hidden fraternity of scholars, navigators, and mystics who preserved fragments of an antediluvian world. The realization struck the team with awe and unease. If humanity once possessed global knowledge, what event was powerful enough to erase it, and who, across the ages, ensured that one map would survive to tell the tale? Long before recorded history, the earth trembled, and seas rose to swallow empires. Myths of a great deluge echo from every corner of the world: Sumerian, Mayan, Hindu, Greek, each describing a world cleansed by water. As ice melted and oceans surged, coastlines shifted, burying entire civilizations beneath the waves. What if these were not allegories, but eyewitness accounts? Modern sonar has revealed submerged cities off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Caribbean. Proof that something extraordinary once stood where now there is only sea. Could the Piri Reis map have captured fragments of this drowned world? Off the coast of India, divers discovered the ruins of Dwarka, a city described in Hindu epics as home to gods and kings who ruled before the flood. Carbon dating placed its foundation thousands of years before the first known civilizations. Columns, walls, and streets lay preserved beneath layers of silt, perfectly aligned with astronomical markers. As the team examined the evidence, a chilling realization dawned. The map's unknown cartographers may have lived among these sunken cities, mapping a world soon to be consumed by the rising sea. The flood was not myth. It was memory carved in stone and ink. Across millennia, stories of Atlantis have haunted human imagination. A great island empire destroyed in a single night of fire and water. Plato claimed it lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, where the ocean swallowed a proud civilization. Yet, what if Atlantis was not a single place, but a collective memory of many that perished? As the team compared the Piri Reis coastline with submerged ridgelines in the Atlantic, the parallels were undeniable. The possibility emerged that the map's source might not be mythical at all, but drawn from those who fled the sinking world, carrying fragments of their knowledge across the globe. Ancient texts speak of sky watchers, beings or scholars who tracked the heavens before the deluge. They mapped stars, calculated equinoxes, and understood the cycles that governed catastrophe. Archaeologists have found megalithic observatories older than the pyramids: Göbekli Tepe, Nabta Playa, and others aligned with celestial precision. Could these have been remnants of the same civilization that produced the Piri Reis sources? Perhaps their maps were not just of Earth, but of time itself. Records of a cosmic cycle that ended with flood and fire, rebirth and forgetting. The Admiral's parchment might hold their last warning. By the end of their journey, a pattern emerged. A map not of geography, but of inheritance. Every civilization carried fragments of an older truth, knowledge of the heavens, of geometry, of the planet's true form. The Piri Reis map had preserved this inheritance like a fossil pressed between epochs. Its creators were neither magicians nor aliens, but survivors, those who watched their world drown and sought to leave behind a message. What began as a study of ink and parchment had become an encounter with humanity's forgotten self, the world before the Great Flood. The scholars believed they had reached the end of the mystery, until Arjun noticed something strange. The distances between key points on the Piri Reis map followed geometric ratios identical to those used in megalithic architecture. The map was not random. It was coded. Beneath the coastlines and latitude lines lay hidden triangles, circles, and alignments matching solar and lunar paths. It was as if the cartographer had embedded a secret message, only visible through mathematics. Could this be proof that the ancients viewed the world itself as a reflection of the heavens, a cosmic mirror drawn upon the skin of the earth? As the team extended their analysis, they discovered that many of the map's key points corresponded not to cities or coastlines, but to stars. The same alignments appeared in the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Peru, and the stones of Göbekli Tepe. The Earth itself seemed designed around a stellar blueprint. Across time, builders had oriented their monuments to Orion, Sirius, and the Pleiades, as if following coordinates passed down from the sky. If the map encoded these same alignments, it suggested that its creator or those before him saw the planet as part of a grand celestial design that transcended civilizations. In mathematics, patterns are proof of purpose. The recurring ratios hidden within the Piri Reis map, 1.618, the golden mean, were not coincidence. The same proportion shaped the Parthenon, Machu Picchu, and even the layout of the Great Pyramid. How could structures separated by oceans share identical mathematical design? Either humanity spontaneously discovered the same laws, or a single source once spread these principles across the earth. The realization unsettled everyone. The map was not only geographical, it was philosophical. It revealed how the ancients perceived harmony between man, nature, and the divine order written in numbers. The map's geometry extended beyond mathematics. It was optical. When projected onto a globe, lines of alignment corresponded with ancient solar temples, equinox markers, and megaliths positioned to capture the first light of dawn. The ancients had built the earth into a clockwork of illumination. Dr. Shaw realized that the Piri Reis map could have been drawn using aerial or orbital perspective, suggesting a vantage point impossible for the 16th century, unless the knowledge came from a time when such observation was possible. Before cataclysm erased the world that once measured time by the dance of the sun. Piece by piece, the revelation unfolded. The Piri Reis map was not a singular artifact. It was part of a greater code connecting all ancient knowledge, from the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Tiahuanaco, from Stonehenge to the ruins of Dwarka. Geometry, astronomy, and mythology intertwined as one continuous legacy. The ancients had not only mapped Earth, they had encoded the rhythm of the cosmos within its form. For the team, this was no longer a quest of history, but of identity. Humanity's oldest memory had spoken through ink, number, and light, reminding us that before the flood, the world itself was a temple. When the research paper was published, it ignited a storm across academia. Universities dismissed it as pseudoscience, while independent scholars hailed it as the discovery of the century. The debate raged, not over the evidence, but over what it meant. To accept the Piri Reis map's implications was to admit that civilization was not born, but reborn. That beneath the linear story of progress lay a hidden cycle: creation, destruction, renewal. The team's inboxes flooded with both praise and condemnation. The map had become a mirror, and the reflection it cast divided the world. While debate consumed the academic world, private expeditions began scouring the globe. Rumors spread of lost archives, underwater structures, and ancient artifacts hidden by governments. Shadowy organizations sought to claim the evidence before it could rewrite history. For the first time, the team realized the danger of what they had unearthed. Knowledge that bridged the gap between myth and science was powerful, and power in every age breeds fear. Yet somewhere amid secrecy and pursuit, a whisper persisted. If the ancients survived one flood, perhaps they left more than maps behind. Satellite imagery confirmed what skeptics feared to acknowledge. Beneath Antarctica's ice, radar scans revealed rectilinear formations stretching for miles, unnatural in shape and scale. Geologists dismissed them as optical illusions, yet the coordinates matched those drawn on the Piri Reis map. The possibility was staggering. Had the ice preserved a remnant of that lost civilization? If so, then history was about to break open. But as governments restricted data access, The evidence slipped from public reach. What lay beneath the frozen continent became the greatest secret of the modern age. Hidden again, just as it had been before the flood, the team's communications were soon intercepted, their research questioned, their funding withdrawn. Some colleagues recanted their involvement. Universities feared scandal. Governments claimed the findings threatened national stability. Yet none could explain the coincidences. The precision of the map, the alignment of data, the buried formations under the ice. Dr. Karaka and Dr. Shaw pressed on in secret, preserving their work in encrypted archives. If the ancients once endured a global cataclysm, perhaps they, too, had hidden their knowledge from an age unready to receive it. History, it seemed, was repeating itself. When fragments of the research leaked online, the world erupted. Conspiracy theorists, theologians, and scientists clashed in chaos. Some hailed it as proof of an ancient global civilization. Others called it blasphemy. News anchors debated whether the evidence was authentic or an elaborate hoax. Yet, amid the noise, one truth remained. Humanity was looking backward, toward its own forgotten dawn. The Piri Reis map, once locked in silence for centuries, had spoken again. It forced a single haunting question into the heart of every nation. If we have forgotten our first world, what else might we lose again? In the quiet aftermath of chaos, a single overlooked notation in Piri Reis' own handwriting reignited the mystery. A faint coordinate, hidden in the curvature of a coastline, pointed not to any landmass, but to a convergence of longitude and latitude that formed an impossible geometry. When plotted, it revealed a point at the center of all ancient maps, a place that did not exist on modern charts. To the team, it was a signature, perhaps even a cipher left by the lost cartographers. It was not a destination on Earth, but a message across time. One only the patient would hear. When they decoded the coordinates, the meaning became unmistakable. The geometry pointed to a ratio identical to the Earth's polar tilt and precessional cycle, an astronomical constant. The ancients had encoded not just where they lived, but when. The Piri Reis map was a record of Earth's previous alignment, its skies before the flood. Its makers had known the stars would change, the poles would shift, and ice would return. Their final act had been to preserve the memory of the world that came before. The admiral, unknowingly, had carried that torch across 500 years of silence. Outside, rain began to fall. A soft, steady rhythm like ancient ocean tides against forgotten shores. The team gathered near the Bosphorus, gazing across the dark water where continents once joined. They spoke little. The realization was too vast for words. The flood myths, the alignments, the map, they were fragments of one long, continuous memory that humanity had buried beneath centuries of disbelief. The sea had taken the old world, but not its echo. Somewhere beneath the waves, the first cartographers slept, their knowledge etched not in paper or stone, but in the memory of the earth itself. In their final presentation, broadcast not to an institution but to the world, the team chose not to argue but to remind. The Piri Reis map, they said, was a bridge between eras. Its precision defied technology, its origins defied history, and yet its message was simple. Civilizations rise and fall, but knowledge endures. They projected the map over Earth's continents, showing how ancient geometry aligned perfectly with modern data. The audience sat in silence, not from disbelief, but reverence. For the first time, the world saw its reflection in the eyes of its forgotten ancestors. As dawn broke over Istanbul, the map was returned to its glass case in Topkapi Palace. The morning light spilled across its surface, illuminating ink that had outlasted empires and disbelief alike. For centuries it had waited, for eyes ready to see and minds willing to remember. The Piri Reis map was no longer a relic, but a revelation, a reminder that humanity's first story was written not in words, but in the earth itself. And though the Great Flood had washed away the first world, it had failed to erase its memory. The map had done what its creators intended. It had remembered for us.